thanks very much for coming. This video is kind of a follow-up to my last video about saving my worst guitar, and kind of something that I've sort of been formulating in my head for the last, 15 years, and it's about how I value a guitar and how I feel about guitars. So like how I rate them, basically. Is this a good guitar? Is this a bad guitar? Etc. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk to you about, well, firstly, like, it's all in search of tone, and tone is in your fingers. There's no point in playing a $20,000 guitar when you're just beginning, because one, you're not going to hear it. You're not going to hear that $20,000. You're not going to hear the difference between a $1,000 guitar and a $20,000 guitar when you're first playing. You don't have the ears for it at first. And secondly, you just can't play the guitar the way it deserves to be played. I can't play the guitar the way it deserves to be played. Half the people out there wouldn't be able to. Anyhow, so that's my first little precursor to don't get too angry. And the second thing is, when I talk about a rating of a guitar, I talk about the rating of the guitar. One, it's for me personally, and two, it's for what the guitar should be. This is absolutely gorgeous Strat copy, essentially. It's not a Strat, but it goes in that vein. And obviously the humbucker means, you expect it to rock out a bit more. So you don't directly compare it to a Strat, but it's for that guitar or that style of guitar and its overall potential. That's what I rate it out of. I'm saying it's like a score out of 100, but it's a score out of 100 towards that style of guitar's ultimate potential. Okay, so I'm going to get into how I rate them and what I think it all comes down to. So here, I'm going to go over it firstly. So I'm going to go over it straight up with this guitar as an example. So there's three categories that I really think about. It's like, the first one is the pickups. And there's no point in denying it. The pickups and the electronics, I personally think that's about 70% of your guitar tone on an electric guitar. Some people might argue more, some people might argue less. The next thing's the hardware. I think this bridge is a great bridge. It's got a good solid steel block. It seems like the 6 screws really transfer the tone, the vibrations into the body really well. These are great tuning pegs. They never go out of tune. That's the sort of thing I'm talking about, the hardware. And then the last thing is the wood and the build quality. Just straight up the wood and how the thing's put together. And I'd say the pickups are 70%. Or pickups and electronics, 70%. 10% for the hardware, and 20% for the wood and build. And I'll qualify that by saying these are instruments that are well set up. I'm not even taking setup into account, because you can spend $200 and get any guitar set up to its full potential. Maybe not $200, maybe $300, but get any guitar set up to its full potential. So I'm taking setup out of it. This is just on the actual guitar. So I'm going to go through this guitar, and then I'm going to compare it to some of my other guitars and why. So firstly, I personally feel like these pickups, they're great. They're bare knuckles. They're a hand-wound pickup. These two are very, very stratty. This one's actually a really good humbucker. This is what I rate the most in this guitar. I really rate this humbucker. These are good, but they're not as good as my Radio Shop single coils. So, they're good. So that's easy. I'd say that these are an 80. They're probably in the top 3, top 5 straight pickups I've ever heard. They're not bad at all. They're good. Hardware. I love the hardware on this guitar. As I said before, I think this bridge is magic. Tuning pegs, they're just tuning pegs. But I really rate this bridge. I think it's real good for tone transfer. You can get it hard on the body, which is what I want in a traditional Strat style guitar. I want it down on the body because I feel like it transfers tone better, and you'll hear from John Mayer, you'll hear from, there's so many really great guitarists who think the same thing, so hopefully I'm right and hopefully they're right. Anyhow, so I'd rate this hardware as like, for a Strat, for a traditional Strat, it's nearly as good as I've seen, so I'd probably give it like an 85 or something. And then the wood, well, it's exceptional, but it's not perfect. And like, in the scheme of things of what potential wood there is, I don't believe it's, it's a high 70s, like a 78, 79. And if you do the maths on that, like an 80 for the pickups, and then you're multiplying it by 0.7, which is 70% of your tones coming from your electronics, that gives out 56. 85 for the hardware adds another 8.5%, and then the build quality, like build and wood, giving it a high 70s, that gets you another 15%. That equals out at like an 80% guitar. And I feel, quite comfortable saying that this guitar is an 80%er. It's a very, very good guitar. To get better than it, you'd have to invest a shitload of money. It's hard to beat. So, I haven't really talked about my background at all. I've played a heck of a lot of guitars. I've worked in 3 music stores, played guitars from, played, set up, changed pickups and guitars from, $100 guitars in store, right through to $15,000 Les Pauls that I've been kind of underwhelmed by. But that's my background. I've played, I don't even know, thousands of electric guitars, thousands and thousands of electric guitars. So I'm gonna just put a little perspective on that by doing sort of running through this number system again with this guitar. This is a quite an old G&L ASAT Classic, and straight up, the wood's not as fancy. It's not as fancy. It has got a kind of bird's eye places on maple neck, rosewood fretboard. Tuning pegs are good. They're G&L. Doesn't go out of tune. Got brass saddles, all 6 individual. I like that for intonation, but I like the brass for tone transfer. This is a really good guitar, and I think I would actually say I like it personally. I think it's probably better than this, but so minuscule that you can't actually sort of work it out. So if I rated the components, I'd say straight up, these pickups I absolutely adore. They are my favourite Tele pickups. They're MFDs. They're the standard ones. I think this is an old enough one that they're actually hand wound, and I'd give them like an 85. So that's higher than the bare knuckles because they're better. Then the wood, probably only give like a 70, 71, 72. The wood is not as high quality wood and build as the grey guitar, and the hardware I give like a 7. And if you add all that up, just because of the fact that I like the pickups I think are better pickups for me, for my ear, for my purpose, that gives them that means that I rate this guitar higher. I rate this guitar at like an 81. And 1% is just, it's nothing. But it's, it's how comfortable you feel. And when you get into the 80s, it's really hard to get 1%. 1%, 2%, it's huge. You can hear it, you can feel it, you can think it. So I just to prove that not all my guitars are gold, because they're not, I want to just go through this. So this is my red G&L ASAT Classic. It's a much newer one. It should have the same wood, but honestly, I give this a 6 out of 10 for wood. It just doesn't feel alive. What? That's a bit unfair. Maybe I'm being a bit unfair. When I'm playing it loud and live is when I notice it the most. Sitting here, this is not in tune. Like, I give it a high 6.5 maybe. It's just not as good. And maybe it's not as good compared to this one, which what did I say? The green was about a 72. Maybe like this is a 65. Hardware is identical. Can't. Got to give it about a 7 or 7 out of 10 or 70. And then pickups. Don't love this bare knuckle. I'd probably only give them an 80 again, because I love this. This is still one of my favourite pickups. I still think that the one on the green one is fatter, but I think that comes down to the wood, and actual pickups were all the same. But yeah, I'd mark it down to an 80, and then you get to it like, so I feel like this guitar's a 76. Now that I've done all the modifications to it, I rate it like a 76. And the reason why I'm telling you this is it's not all this stuff. It's not to show you my guitars and go, oh, this is better than this and this. It's just a process of thinking about guitars. It's something that should help you when you're going to buy a guitar. Like, so for instance, right? I got a PRS. I don't have it here because it's on loan to one of my band members. And that's dual humbuckered, beautiful wood, everything on it's perfect. Like, there's nothing I'd change about it. It's a very, very expensive guitar. But I'd go, the pickups are 85. They're the best sounding humbuckers I've ever heard, but I still know that there's like if I could find old vintage PAFs to go on that guitar, you know, from 1958 or 59, I know they'd be better. Or maybe they wouldn't, but I'm pretty sure they would be. So, you know, 85 is about as good as I've ever heard. The hardware is immaculate, stays in tune incredibly well. There's nice big brass transfer on the bridge, and there's a locking low mass tuners at the top. That's like, I don't even think you can buy stuff that good independently. So that's like, I reckon that's a 9. And the wood, again, I reckon it's like a 9. And I know, even though that I don't play the PRS much because it's not really my style, I know it's a better guitar than either of these two. This one or this one. They're definitely more my style. I'm definitely more of a tally player or a Strat player. But I think the grey would have been close if I changed. I think the grey would be close if I changed the pickups, the front pickups, and there was just a few little things that weren't quite right about it. That I think if I'd got it as a custom build for me, I would choose differently. Yeah, so that's that guitar, and the guy who's borrowing it has a guitar that's in a very similar style, but it's an Epiphone. It's a much cheaper guitar, much cheaper guitar. But he spent 500 New Zealand dollars on pickups, and he spent about 300 New Zealand dollars changing all the hardware on it. Maybe 400. He's even put a string butler on it. And if I do the maths on it, and this is really true, like I play this guitar and I'm like, there's nothing wrong with it, it's just not that great. It's pretty good. And like if I do the maths on it, I go, it's got hand mount pickups from a really good brand. Can't remember who it is at the moment, but who cares? You know, and they do sound good. It's a pickup sound that's good. You know, that might be an 8 out of 10 or 80%. You know, they're not as good as the PRS ones, but they're good. And then just put all Goto stuff on it, all Japanese Goto tuning machines, and the bridge, like Tone Pro style bridge. It's all, you know, and that might be a 7. It's not like the PRS. It doesn't have specially made parts with low mass here and big brass bits to increase your tone here, but it's really good. It doesn't go out of tune. It might be a 7, it might even be a 7.5. But the thing that this falls short is you play the chord, it's dead. The guitar's dead. It's a 5 out of 10. The guitar is serviceable, but nothing better. So you're starting with a 5 out of 10 on the guitar, the actual body wood build. And I think, honestly, I'm being generous because the thing they don't even stay in tune. They're horrible, no matter how much setup you get. But even with spending all that money on pickups and all that money on tuning pegs, and he gets it set up every year, and he gets it set up by this guy who's about 500 k's away and supposed to be the best in the country. It still doesn't matter. The guitar's still dead. And, like if I do my maths on it, my maths system on how I rate guitars, it comes out as a 74. 74%. And that's not bad. But it isn't good. I got this Standard Strat. This is actually, same thing, right? Standard, when it came, I would have rated the pickups 75%. They were good pickups, But Standard, Fat 50s, they're good pickups. Hardware, I don't actually love the Fender hardware. I don't really like the 2-post bridge. The block is just makes it sound thin. I feel like it doesn't. I actually way prefer the hardware on that, on the grey guitar. But I'd call this, a 6. It stays in tune. It's a bit like halfway doesn't stay in tune. 6 stays in tune. Stays in tune, does the job. It's better than 6 out of 10. And then the wood. This is a 3-piece body. Like, what the hell? In my country, this guitar's like $3,000. It's an American Strat. 3-piece body is just it really frustrates me. And the build quality is clean. It's clean. There's nothing wrong with it. You can't see mistakes in it. It's good. So what? 65. So if you put this guitar as standard, it's only like a 71 and a half out of a 71 or something, like out of 100. That's what I rate it. Standard Strat. It's about 71. That's a good guitar. Zane's super modified guitar that he spent $1,000 fixing up actually probably sounds better. Doesn't stay in tune because it's an Epiphone, but that's maybe my own shot at Epiphone. Yeah, it probably sounds better. But the thing is with this is you've got that bass platform of 65 on the wood and neck and, the build quality. Even though I'm not stoked with it, 65 rather than 50. You chuck what I've done. I've put Radio Shop pickups in this, and these are the best Strat pickups I've ever heard. And all of a sudden, your 75, these are 85 pickups. They're as good as I've ever heard in a Strat, I was playing for a while. I got to the end of a custom shop 56 Masterbuilt Strat. 56? 57 maybe. But beautiful red, Fiesta red, big V-neck. Probably a bit more crystally than those. They're probably a bit more 60s style. But, I still feel like you can rate them next to each other and go, actually just straight up quality. They're as good. Anyhow, long story short, the Radio Shop pickups. And if I wanted to spend $200, $300 on hardware, I'd love to put like a decent bridge in it. I'd love to put a wood tone bridge in it. And put locking tuning pegs on it. Because locking tuning pegs I think may be overrated. But even just the Godo vintage tuners like on this one. And that guitar would be up in the high 70s, 79, 70, 79. Maybe even 80. Might be as good as... No, I don't think it would be as good as the Grey or the GNL, but it would be close. It would be a very good guitar. And it's the same thing with the old, you could buy a Classic Vibe. When I first played a Classic Vibe, I remember... I've played lots, and some of them are really underwhelming, so that's another thing. With once you get cheaper, the difference between a good one and a bad one becomes bigger. So you might get one that has a build and wood quality of like a 35, and you might get another one that has a build and wood quality of like a 60. But I remember playing the first classic vibe that I played was probably about 2008, 2009. I was working in a store, and they came in, and the very first one that I played was a Tally in a blonde, and it was just exceptionally good. Like, when I mean exceptionally good, I mean exceptionally good for the value for money. It wasn't anything like on what I personally have, but I was like, whoa, this guitar's really good. And I played a couple of others at the same time, you know, and they weren't as good. But like, if I took that classic vibe, 62%er, right, that's what I reckon it is. I reckon it's almost honestly as good a wood as the wood on that guitar. It's really close. You chuck the Radio Shop pickups and fancy hardware on it, and it would be better than that guitar, as that guitar stands. But well, not better than that one, because that's got the Radio Shop pickups in it. But the cap on it would be the thing that would annoy you. The wood would always be the limitation. The wood and the build quality would always be the limitation. Yeah. So that's my huge rant on tone. I hope the thing that I really wanted people to get out of it was that you can buy cheap instruments. You know? You can buy things that don't cost much. And it doesn't matter. The thing is the top cap on it. You know? It's really hard. Like, as I said, I might be able to get this to an 80% guitar. A guitar that I think is 80% worthy. Like, 80% good. This guitar came is an 81-ish. And if I change those pickups for pickups I like a little better, which, you know, I will do. Only the front two. I like that back one. I might even change the back one. But the front two, if I change them to Radio Shops, just those same pickups in there, that guitar goes up to an 84, 83, 84. Just those few percentages is impossible to get there. Whereas, you know, like the PRS, I'd say the wood and build quality and hardware, well, you can't get better. So, you know, it sits up at, you know, what I'd say is 86-ish. And, you know, whew, be really, really hard to find better pickups for it. I'm sure someone's found them or makes them, but I haven't. This guitar, same deal. I think the thing that lets us down is the wooden build. I think the super heavy lacquer. I've often thought about ordering a custom shop. This exact guitar with just a thin nitro, like this neck profile, everything. I love. Just that. I think that super heavy lacquer and you know, I don't know how many piece body this is because you can't really tell. Sometimes you can see the lacquer lines through the not the lacquer line, you know, like the paint lines, the seam lines through the paint, but this guitar you can't. Yeah, that's my rant. Tell me what you think. Do you think pickups are 70%, hardware's 10%, and wood and build is 20%? Or do you think differently? You know, like, I guarantee you every guitar builder out there will go, no, wood and I guarantee you they'll go, oh no, wood and build is, you know, 40% or something. And I think that's fair. You know, everybody's has the right to their own opinion. But thing I'd like to say is, like, straight up, if the build quality is rubbish and the wood's rubbish, you put, even if it's perfectly intonated, like, you know, we're taking out intonation, we're taking out, like, setup, perfectly intonated for it, because if it's real rubbish it won't. But, you know, you take, if it's crap wood and build quality, you put the best pickups in the world in it, and it's still, if it doesn't play in tune, you can't even rate it. You know, like, I guess I'm saying this whole system is based on guitars that are actually usable, giggable. Oh well, that's my thoughts. Let me know what you think.